1935, the Lions win the NFL championship. The Detroit Tigers take the World Series. The Red Wings bring home Lord Stanley's Cup. Joe Louis begins his rise to world domination. This transforms the Motor City into Detroit, City of Champions.
Detroit City of Champions, the podcast. I'm Jamie Flanagan, Charles Avison, and we are diving into the story behind a trilogy of books, Detroit City of Champions.
Yes,
and
yeah,
we are, what,
7? I think we're 8.
This is somewhere in there. We're deep.
Dude, I might have to do a correction on the next show if it's not 7 or 8. I don't know.
It's 7. It's 7.
Is it really? All right, 7 it is. Yeah.
90%. I'm 90% sure it's 7.
Well, I have no problem doing corrections. You know that, and I actually have a correction.
Do you?
To make. Yep.
Really?
And I also, but before I do that, I want to. Matt, is that camera on me real quick?
All right.
Hey, I just got a little congratulations. I want to send out.
Oh, okay.
Quick. Yep.
What do you got?
So it's my brother-in-law Ray. He's getting his bachelor's. He's graduating,
Hey.
and this Sunday, and he's like getting it. So I just want to send out a message to Ray and tell him how much I love him. My brother-in-law, my sister, and everybody in our family. So congratulations, brother, and real proud of you. So that's exciting.
I like it. Yeah. Oh, geez. You know, it's like, what a time to be graduating.
Tough times. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's, proud of, that's a tough battle. It's like, it's
finishing.
gonna be easy to finish this up right now, with all this stuff going on. So,
right.
So we're real proud of him.
Yeah, well, congratulations to him. That's that is very, very cool.
Yep,
and excitement. The fans go wild, right?
Well,
for graduation, they're throwing the caps.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like a video version, I suppose. My sister graduated too. She got promoted to an officer for the Coast Guard.
Oh,
in the middle of all this too. We had like a big Zoom thing there was like 150 people on the Zoom chat. It was crazy. We got a widescreen TV. Our whole family was there.
Oh, nice.
And there was like 150 other little thumbnail pictures of everybody. Yeah, so that was cool too. So we're proud of her too. So
hey, love it.
Yep, but the next thing is the negative, which is the correction from the last episode. Something we said. So it's so like I say, we plow through some of the stuff, and I do rewatch the show to in case I make a mistake every once in a while, and this is a mistake that I picked up on immediately, and it's one of those mistakes to like. I knew it, you know what I mean? It's not like you just, for some reason or another, you just, so anyways, the mistake to correct is the fact that I said that Ty Cobb left the Tigers last year. He left the Tigers in 1924 and then he retired in 1926. Right. But in reality, he left the Tigers in 1926 and he retired in 1928. He played 2 years with the A's and then left after that. Right. So rather small, I guess you could say, but accuracy, we pride ourselves on accuracy.
Oh, well, that was the whole thing. 'Cause you put 7 years of research into these 3 books and the screenplay that you put together and all these stories behind it. You have so much information in your head. It just astounds me.
Well, here's the thing is that the crazy thing about that particular fact is that like I knew it, and that's what I'm saying. Like I'm not trying to like play Monday, Thursday evening quarterback. I knew that. I just like this. But I mean, I knew enough to like catch my own error, right?
Yeah,
and then but that's what I'm saying. Like, the reason I knew it is because 1924 actually was one of the Tigers in that whole era of like, dark times for the Tigers. That was actually one of the only years that they were actually somewhat competitive. And they actually drew 1 million fans that year. So, but that's like, besides that was like, that they drew 1 million fans that year, and then there was nothing for all these different other years. But they were competitive that year, and like I say, I've actually I've told that story to people before, so that's what I mean. Like that's why it's like I knew that was a mistake. It's like I caught myself pretty quick.
Yeah.
Like, So
and again, because we're in a year, I mean, you make a couple cursory notes, and we're just having a conversation about the amazing year. Yeah. And the amazing teams, the interesting people and their stories, and it just the information that you have stored in your brain is astounding to me. Mine would probably explode. Yeah. I'm in awe every week.
That, man. Just like I say, it's just and that's the thing is there's a lot of little moving parts and stuff like that, and So, but here's the thing: is like I have no problem admitting a mistake. I mean, like it's like you actually learn. I think you learn from it because that's a fact I'm not gonna mix up again.
I'm looking forward to someone calling us out on something that we miss and not catch.
And if they do, if somebody catches it out, if they write in, send us put it in the comments or whatever for the show, and like I say, we'll correct it and update it for accuracy and all that. So, moving on with our show episode
7.
There you go.
I'm 90% sure it's 7.
Take a look.
So it's I don't know. That's what we were talking
correction
about.
for the episode number.
We but I can't believe we're 7 in already.
At least
there's 6 in the bucket. So if you're listening, we appreciate you taking some time to live through these stories with us as Charles shares these stories with me and with you. So go ahead and if you could be a ginormous favor to us is to hit a subscribe button or or follow,
like it, share it, all that stuff.
Wherever you're at, whatever the device is, ring the bell.
We had great viewership last week. There was like 1,000 viewers. Man.
I know,
like it was great. Like that. I mean, I think we were joking at the beginning of the episode. They said something like, y'all 12 people to watch. I'm like, I think there's going to be a few more than that. I think there's like 1,000 or so. I think I predicted it.
And the crowd goes wild.
Yeah. Like I think we actually had some pretty, so, everything starts small, but before you know it, we're going to have like like 1 million people or something, we'll see.
But that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about how the crowd goes wild and how this 1934 and then 1935 year, with this Tiger mania. It was it was just crazy. Yeah. These 2 years, 34 up at the end, just to go to the World Series. Yeah. It had been such a drought, and people were so into it. And now we're back into 35. The city is like, hey, it's not a fluke. National media is going,
they got lucky. It was a fluke. The players were healthy. Nobody saw them coming in 34. Total fluke. And then that was like the narrative. It was like the national media saying, oh, they was totally lucky. And then 34, the fans were like, we weren't lucky. We're going to do it. And Mickey, of course, leading that charge. Yeah. But then, in the back of their minds, their friends are like, please let it not be a fluke. Like they don't know. They don't know. But they're like, oh, it's not a fluke. We're going back. But then, they're like, I hope we go back.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing, right? So what can you tell me about the fans from 1934 and 1935?
That's what we're diving into. So the episode, I put the title of the episode is Stick a Feather in Your Hat for the Tigers.
Okay.
Stick a Feather in Your Hat for the Tigers. And I made that title specifically because I wanted to tell like a quick story about something cool that we're going to, it's maybe a little bit out of alignment for what we want to talk about in this episode, but I love it. It's just I think it's just like so cool. Like, so anyways, there's all this Tiger mania and everything, which we're going to get into, but there's always just like back then, just like now, especially when stuff is popular, people are always making, there's always like little gimmicks and knickknacks and giveaway type stuff that souvenir that people are trying to make money every which way they can.
Terrible towels.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Perfect example. For the fans to do stuff. But anyway, so the Detroit News at one point, they issued a feather in their newspaper, and it was a yellow feather. And it was stamped on there. It
were these actual feathers?
They're literally a yellow feather.
Oh my God. You gotta know back in 1934.
Yeah.
These were not sourced.
Yeah. Like
naturally.
these are right. It wasn't they weren't sourced naturally.
I wonder. Okay. There's probably an ugly story underneath that somewhere.
But anyways, so there was yellow
stick a feather in your cap?
It said right on the feather, it said stick a feather. So it's but there's a tiger stamped on it and everything. And I saw it was on like just one of those things I was like looking for on like eBay or whatever. And so it was just like, I'm like, what the heck is this? It's like this 1934 tiger feather. And I didn't buy it because, when you're putting stuff together, you're putting, using information stuff, gathering information. Like sometimes you spend like $600 on a game program, scan the info. I was really after the information.
Sure.
So there's all kinds of quirky stuff that was online, that I could have bought, if I had the money, but the feather was like $150 or $150 or something. I was like, I'm not good. So I did a screenshot of it. Yeah. I did a screenshot of it. Maybe I shouldn't be saying this. Maybe this is like illegal or something. I don't know, but I did a screenshot of it.
As long as you're not reselling it.
No, there's no resale. What's the resale value?
Okay.
So
all right,
but anyway, so I did a screenshot and then I printed it on a photo. And then I think there was two side. I wish I would have brought it in because, anyways, what I did was I think there was a front and back picture, and I did a screenshot of the front and back, and then I printed them on a 4x6 photos, and then glued them together, and then cut around it, and it actually frilled the ends. so it like actually looks like
so made your own little feather.
Like it's that I put up on my wall, like I taped it to my wall, I stuck it in little some of my mementos or whatever. So I got it. I got a reproduction of it.
Stuck a feather in your cap for the Tigers.
Yeah. So anyways, that's kind of why I wanted to name the episode that, just because I wanted to make sure I told that story because like, where else do you get to talk about, a yellow feather?
So that came in the paper. Which one of the papers?
Detroit News.
The News. Okay. All right. Because we had the News, we had the Times, and the Free Press.
All three. Yep.
So the Times has kind of gone away, but back in the day, the Times was quite the player and quite the cheerleader of what was going on.
Yeah.
In the Tiger world.
Yeah, well, the news and the free press were more like would cover the stories. They would cover the events, whereas the Times were like actively like sinking money into the events so that they would have the only exclusive in town. If you're
that's good journalism.
Well, they had the money.
It's not good journalism.
Well, William Randolph, but William Randolph Hearst owned the Detroit Times as well as a syndicate of newspapers across the country. He was fabulously wealthy.
Yeah.
And so I believe he didn't like say this or anything, but in my opinion, because the ramp up of sports coverage, especially in Detroit, it led me to think that he looked at this as an opportunity to maybe drive these other newspapers out of business. And so, because like I say, that the amount of coverage of sports in the Detroit Times at that time was just incredible.
Yeah.
It was staggering.
It was great marketing.
Yeah,
not great journalism.
Yeah. There you go.
It's amazing marketing.
I was agreeing with you. I was kind of going with the flow. Yeah.
But hey, it's those are the times, and then the feathers were, I'm sure, sourced.
Yeah, so I wanted to start the show actually, really get in the proper mindset. I wanted to get in the show I wanted to sort of paint a picture. If we're talking about the fans, I think it's essential to sort of paint a picture of the times that they lived in.
Yeah, because 1932, 1933, 1934, 1935. This is the Great Depression, the Dust Bowl, the picture of that that migrant woman, in Oklahoma, someplace that kind
of dirty with the kid, looks like they have nowhere to go.
That's when you think in the 1930s, when someone says the Depression of 1930s, that's the image that pops in my head. That woman with her kids, that black and white picture, that Dust Bowl picture.
Yeah. But I want to paint another picture.
That seemed like the mood of America, really.
Well, absolutely. There's, those are the iconic images that we today, associate with the Great Depression. There's no doubt about that. But that's what, like, an opportunity to really, to maybe paint a few other colors into this, to show a little bit more, some of the cool things that were happening too at that time, to get a frame of reference of like the times. So, I have a huge timeline in the second book that talks about this stuff. I'm just going to kind of ramble right down the list. This is really, I'm going to focus on 34.
Okay.
So, first Three Stooges short comes out in 1934.
Oh yeah.
First Three Stooges. Yep. And then you have Bonnie and Clyde are killed. John Dillinger is shot to death. You have Alcatraz Island's founded, or they made Alcatraz Island. Final season of Babe Ruth with the Yankees. Final season of Red Grange. We're talking about 1934.
Okay.
Shirley Temple debuts. You have in 1935. You have Monopoly is born. Right? You have the birth. You have Radar. Canned beer is introduced for the first time. The first hot meals on airplanes. Like, so you see, like, there's a few other, like, there's some pretty big deals.
1934 canned beer. Yeah. The third inning, first canned beer on the field.
Yeah. Well, but here's the thing: is that kind of leads me, like, it leads into really the main one of the biggest things, really. One of the biggest things was the repeal of prohibition.
Right.
So I heard the day. So April 7th, 1933. The sale of 3.2% beer is legalized by Congress. The very next day, Clydesdale horses deliver a keg of Budweiser to the White House. So that's legalized. And then Budweiser, the first thing they do is FDR just got elected president a few months before, and they drop off a keg of beer to the White House, with Clydesdale horses. And then May 10th, beer, that 3.2% beer is legalized in Michigan.
Okay.
And so this December 5th, 1933 prohibition is completely repealed. So you can drink liquor then too. And then New Year's Eve of 1934, this is sort of the summary of everything. New Year's Eve of 1934 was the first to involve the legal consumption of alcohol since 1920. And so think about this, like, to try to frame where we're at right now, entering this 1934 season. So we've already talked about the arrival of Mickey Cochran at the end of 1933. The Tigers are heading into 1934, and like, there's a little bit of excitement coming, and all of a sudden, because they had this, they've just signed like this Hall of Fame all-world catcher. And then all of a sudden now, beer and liquor are legalized. They're selling it in the stadiums. That's what I'm saying. Exactly. So the very first year that beer and liquor is legalized, all of a sudden, the Tigers are players in baseball. So they got to really go at it with beer and liquor for this season. I just thought that's a great like a great way to kick off.
We could probably play that. That's probably in public domain.
That song's like 80 years old.
Yeah.
It's absolutely in the public domain.
So that's so that adds to the party in the city.
There you go. That's what I'm saying. It adds absolutely. I mean, it's undoubtedly adds to the party.
Well, Detroit was always sort of on because we're so close to Canada.
Yeah.
As the river would freeze, they would just drive it over. First world land speed record. Henry Ford on the Detroit River.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's like 65 miles an hour or something. Yeah. Henry Ford set the first land speed record.
Really?
On the Detroit River while it was frozen.
Really? That's awesome.
Yeah, he had a driver who, and then the driver was scared. He was like, poo, I'll do it.
Oh, really? He drove it himself?
Yeah.
Nice.
And then great. From there, they went to Florida. I
would have thought maybe he would have got like some kind of a water record because he's got going fast on water.
Yeah.
I mean, it's frozen, but he's on water.
So they would bring it over. So we weren't really as dry as we probably should have been in Detroit.
Yeah, I noticed I said the word legal consumption.
Legal consumption. Yes.
Yeah. So like I say, that's sort of sets the stage. I mean, this is this sort of sets the stage for the season. And so, anyways, it sort of sets the stage for one of the quotes I was hoping to get to. And so it really so the quote that I'm going to read. Let me break out the page and have it ready to go here.
Yeah,
so it comes from the second book. Let me see, page 285. And because I did a whole section in the fans in the second book.
Okay.
And so
I mean, you talk about today it was the 12th man, and it matters. That's the interesting thing. We're recording here in August of 2020, and sports are kicking back in with no crowds, and you got paper cutout crowds.
Yeah,
I was listening to a couple baseball broadcasts, and they were feeding in crowd noises and stuff.
Man, I don't know about all that. It reminds me of something Andy Kaufman said. Like, have you ever seen that?
I thought you were gonna remind me of an Andy Kaufman sketch, and I'd be like, "Yep."
Maybe a little bit. You got with Jim Carrey, the movie The Man in the Moon.
Yeah.
Where he was talking about like the laugh track, like he hated the laugh track.
Yeah.
Like, there's dead people's voices laughing on this. Like he was like really spooked out by it. Yeah. So I was like, it kind of is like a similar thing to me. I'm like, you never, I mean, is it the crowd noise? Like, I understand you have to have a little bit of, background, like ambient noise for a home run or something to give it a little bit of background sound, but like to make it like a cheer, like they're cheering a home run. It's just weird, man.
Yeah.
Because I've watched a little bit of baseball,
is it disingenuous? It's no longer, when you take a photograph, because today with the computer manipulation, they're deep faking baseball is what they're doing.
Yeah,
it's
weird.
It's
man.
A deep fake of a baseball game.
Cutouts is just horrendous. I mean, weird.
You can buy a couple of stadiums are doing it where you can pay to be a cutout.
Yeah, well, that's what they should be doing. They should. I mean, that's
really, so you can buy your cutout and put it in someplace.
Yeah, I mean, make a couple of bucks of it, I guess. But have sort of a point to it. I mean, it's just odd, man.
Yeah. So we have no fans right now.
I know that, but and the other thing too is that why not let some fans in?
Yeah.
These baseball parks seat, what does Comerica seat? Almost 40,000 fans.
Yeah.
They're not even going to get 15,000 a game anyway. So I mean, what are they? You bring them in, they have the seat set 3-4 seats apart from each other. Each group has to maintain a 6-foot social distance.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man. Like use the park. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
but it's a deep fake of reality. I mean, we're living through a deep fake of reality, but this was the real deal back in 34.
Yeah.
The fans were just excited. And you said you had a quote there that you wanted to kick things off with?
Yeah. So I just like this one. This comes sort of at the tail end of 1934. There's, like I say, I have a ton of quotes in here. It's actually tough to choose from.
Mm-hmm.
But I love these kind of quotes because it takes you back in time. This guy was actually there, looking at this stuff. And so anyway, so the quote date is from September 17th, 1934. And at that moment, the Tigers were they ended up, the spoiler alert, the Tigers won the game. And but at the conclusion of the game, there were 6.5 games up on the Yankees, basically heading towards their 1934 pennant. And so, where's that right here? So anyways, they, Yeah, so they would clinch the pennant 1 week later. And so this was like, headed towards the last sort of pennant. So this is like, big game. They're playing against the Yankees, of course, too. So the Yankees could potentially get back in. It's a big game.
Damn Yankees.
Packed house, yeah. And so General Crowder would end up beating Lefty Gomez 3-0 in this game. And so, like I say, spoiler alert, because of this, the game results are not necessarily as important as the actual the scene, the vibe, setting, the scenes are what's happening at the game, which I think that's what the purpose of this quote is. So it's written by Bob Murphy, one of my favorite writers over the course of all these books. Bob Murphy was just an absolute cut up, man. He was so funny, just an absolutely just a great writer from the Detroit Times. I was able to, one of the great things about all these books that I was so happy about, because I did a section on the media in 1935 too, like who all the sports media, national and local. And one I was so happy I found a picture of Bob Murphy.
Oh, nice.
And that's why I actually said in the book, like, incredibly rare photo of Bob Murphy, because it's one of those, like, when I found this photo, I was like, oh my God, it's really grainy. I had to spend so much time trying to restore it. But I was so happy to find this picture of Bob Murphy. So anyways, because I had so much respect for him. Nobody knows who he is nowadays.
Right.
But he was just such a major, like, City of Champions writer.
Okay.
So anyways, this comes from him. And so again, September 17th, 1934. So the title of the article is called "Wild-Eyed Mob Cheers Tigers to Victory." So all thoroughfares and street arteries leading to Navin Field, scene of today's Tiger-Yankee battle, were choked with traffic hours before the scheduled start of the game. Streams of shoving, pushing humanity were crowding through the gates at 1 o'clock, and hundreds of persons milled about outside ticket windows, disappointed because the SRO sign was out. There was a zip and a twang to the breeze that swept through the big stadium, making top coats comfortable. It was probably the best-natured crowd of the year that stormed the turnstiles. There was shouting and hurrahing from every corner. Beer vendors, despite the chilly breeze, were being given a nice workout. Center field bleachers were practically filled at 1:30, and hundreds were ganging into the unreserved grandstand seats from all entrances. The Tigers appeared on the field shortly after 1:30 o'clock and were given a noisy welcome. Flea Clifton, who scored the winning run in Sunday's game with Washington, went out to the pitcher's box to serve up offerings for batting practice. The big crowd let out a roar as some lad in the right field bleachers made a headlong dive for a schoolboy row hit over the screen. He fell down 3 rows of seats, but came up smiling with the ball. The Yankees filed out at 1:45 and received a resounding chorus of cheers. Just to make them feel at home, one group organized to give the Bronx cheer. The once mighty George Herman Ruth was one of the last to totter from the dugout to the field. The great crowd arose and roared an ovation that must have done the soul of the aging and ailing Bambino good. The right field bleachers were overflowing before 2 o'clock. Few unreserved seats were vacant. The newsreel cameraman beckoned Ruth from the dugout, and he posed with Schoolboy Rowe for 5 or 6 minutes. When it was all over, the great man from Gotham affectionately patted the schoolboy on the shoulder. And so the next little header: fight for balls. By 2:15 o'clock, the crowds were lined behind a wire in center field. Then the fun started as the Yankees took their batting practice. Men, women, and children dove, pushed, shoved, and fought for all balls hit in their direction. It was one stampede after another, with the crowd applauding and cheering. The spectators made no bones about taking the balls away from the helpless fielder. A goodly sum of dough went overboard in the item of lost balls. The center field overflow crowd was fast reaching near riot proportions. An outfielder took his life in his hands if he attempted to catch one of the balls hit in the batting practice. Boys will be boys, and that goes for girls too. The 4 umpires assigned to handle the game were George Moriarty, Bill McGowan, Bill Deneen, and Red Ormsby. They scratched their noggins and looked puzzled as they watched the actions of the rampant crowd. Packed to the rafters. That's the header for the next little thing here. A group of uniformed music makers came into the second deck shortly past 2:30 and started blaring away. This caught the fancy of the big crowd more than ever. They swayed and cheered and were making much hey as the Tigers romped out from the infield practice. Order was restored in the center field precincts when some 20 or 30 policemen lined themselves in front of the crowd. The crowd liked this too. This crowd today likes anything. It can take its fun where it finds it. Mr. Navin's big concrete house was literally packed to the rafters. Even the box seats were 3/4 filled 20 minutes before game time. The Tigers snapped through their infield workout as the milling humanity continued to pour through the gates and into the field. Before 5 and 6,000 were lined around the field and perched on the fence in center field. The press box was jammed with scribes from most of the country's leading newspapers. All seemed eager to concede the Tigers as good as in. El Gufo Gomez, i.e. Lefty Gomez, the Yanks' great pitcher, posed with Schoolboy Rowe. Crowder then came out and started warming up for the Tigers. Gomez unlimbered his left wing for the Yankees. Mounted policemen rode into center field to render succor and aid to their fellow Bluecoats who were attempting to hold back the overflow crowd. The umpires assembled at home plate with manager Joe McCarthy of the Yankees and Mickey Cochran of the Tigers. Grounds rules were discussed, cussed, and whatnot. The crowd by this time was restless, ready for the colorful battle to begin. The jabbering changed into a rumble sound and then into a deafening roar as the Tigers rushed to their position. The game was on.
Oh, nice.
Man,
that's just the vintage language. Yeah,
he takes you there.
The gentleman from Gotham. What did he call him?
It's the gentleman. I closed the book. You should ask me that question. I had the book off.
I love that.
I'll look it up.
He called him
the giant from Gotham.
And it was the scribes. He 285, I think. Yeah, and then the scribes. He called the reporter the scribes from across.
That's what I'm saying. It was almost poetry. You know, because the newspapers were the primary vehicle of information at that time. Yeah. So like the writers were like elite, man. You had to be elite of the elite to be a newspaper writer back then. Yeah. So what did they call him? They said they called Babe the
from Gotham. Yeah, it was. I just love that. I'm getting all Batman with Babe with the old
great
Babe
man
Ruth
from Gotham. Was that the point one?
Yeah. Yeah, great man from Gotham.
Yep. Yeah, it said, but it was, you've got, Ruth comes out, tips his cap. It was the last year for Babe Ruth. That's what I mentioned in that, in that beginning. But it was Ruth's last year. And, and he
was he playing a lot that year?
Yeah, he played significant. He was always good, even in his last couple of years, even his last year, his final year, he finished in Boston, not the Red Sox, but the National League team. I think it was the Braves back at that point.
Yeah.
But he had a good year in 1934 too. He's been playing for years. I mean, he goes back to the Ty Cobb, the end of the, Ty Cobb, he goes back to the Ty Cobb era, but he wasn't in the same, Cobb was younger than him.
Yeah.
But but he'd been playing for forever, so it was really his last hurrah. And so when Babe comes out, tips his cap. I mean, it doesn't matter where he's at. The Tiger Nation loves him. Right. He did some of the biggest moonshots ever seen at old Tiger Stadium, Navy Field. Yeah.
So the Navin Field. So that was Michigan and Trumbull. They weren't called that
prior to Tiger Stadium
that time. So Navin Field, that was the same spot, became Briggs Stadium and then Tiger Stadium. Yep. So it was the same spot. And lots of the look of the stadium, it didn't change a whole ton. I mean, they added to it, but the core of it was replicated
added on, just added on, and to me
improved but the look of it stayed the same,
and the same footprint, and they extended onto it. And to me, it's to me, like the way, like the evolution of Navin Field to Briggs Stadium and then Tiger Stadium, that to me, like, because I've got this whole other, we've already said it, this whole other baseball project where I'm starting, and I hesitate to go too far into it. We'd be totally off track. but the idea that one of the things that I question is this current baseball, the way that the world works today for pro baseball is it's like become this necessary thing for a city to have a like $500 million, whatever it is, ridiculous ballpark, this incredibly expensive ballpark. I mean, it's like, if you don't like, even like trying to get in an independent baseball team or even a minor league team, the first question anybody ever asks is like, where are you going to get the money to build $100 million stadium?
Right.
You're like, no, I just want to start a team. I want to start a professional team. They're like, yeah, well, you need $100 million stadium, and you're like, no, what are you talking about? That's what I'm saying. Like back then, like that was, the evolution of Navin Field, to Briggs, to Tiger Stadium. As you point out there, it was the same footprint. They just added on to it over the years, and they built it according to like the needs of the fans, like what was coming out. And I just think that, in this in the current world, it's like you got to start massive and you got to start with the biggest ballpark with like 30,000 seats or whatever. And it's, to me, that seems kind of crazy, because it's like, you don't even know really especially these minor league teams, you don't even know like how many fans you're going to be able to see, like are going to even show up to your games. Right. Like, why not build a smaller park, a nice park, and then evolve it with the, reinvest the profits and evolve it gradually, so anyways, it's, and I think the answer really to that question is, if there is a question about, why they do it, it's just because, it's almost like they sell the ballpark now more than the product on the field. But again, we can start drifting off into it.
So that's and I'm that.
But that's how they did it. Was they evolved it? They evolved it. Yeah.
Yeah, I find that. I
they evolved it from And Navin, as we mentioned in an earlier episode of Navin, is that his entire, he he like, unlike a lot of these other owners, his income was dependent on the Tigers.
Yeah.
So whereas a lot of these other owners were like wealthy industrialists that just did baseball for fun, like his ability to turn a profit on the Tigers and reinvest the money into the ballpark and such like this was like, that's what he did. That was his primary thing. He wasn't like a wealthy magnate for the, chewing gum fortune that came into this, so that's what I mean. So he reinvested his profits wisely, evolved the stadium over the years. In the 34 and 35 season, all the revenue they brought in from the season and from the World Series is what allowed them to expand it into what became Briggs Stadium. That was the next evolution of it. They reinvested the money wisely. So
there was where was I going? I had something I was going to say to you.
I distracted
about the imagery in that article that you read about the police coming onto the field with their horses.
Yeah.
And
they had to be reinforced. Did you catch the point where they had to be
and
reinforced? Like they already had 20 or 30 cops, and there was already a near riot. They had to like, we need reinforcements for the section.
They had like standing room only on the field, so people were on the field,
roped off. Yeah, they just drag a rope in front of them and say, "Don't cross this rope."
Can you imagine today people following rules the way they follow?
How cool that would be.
Oh no, it's amazing!
Wouldn't that be great? Isn't that awesome?
Amazing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like that's what I'm saying. Baseball today, again, we're drifting a little bit into my. We, I'm just gonna stop apologizing for it because it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
But baseball today is too sanitized.
Yes,
it's sanitized.
You can never.
Besides
do that
just
today.
the Corona thing, I'm not trying to say because of this. Of course,
no.
I'm talking about, but every other component, like like this, like a roped out field. People are like, oh god, they're roped off the field to have fans. Well, that's cool, man.
In like the last 2 years, it's like more and more netting.
Up
around,
what I'm saying.
And it's all because of because they hit harder than ever. And the balls are moving faster. Are they not? I don't know.
I mean, the ball hits off a bat. If a 90, I guess maybe you throw a few miles an hour fastball.
Again, it's
because people. A lot of it's because people are on their cell phones, not paying attention, and the ball gets ricocheted off a bat and hits them in the face. That's the reason. That's one of the reasons why.
Get off your phone.
I'm not trying to.
When you're in the stands, you need to feel something.
I'm not trying to make anybody. I having to be politically correct and go, defend the position or this. But I'm just saying, like. Baseball has existed for 100 years.
Right.
All right. Netting behind home plate has been there. But the netting, like what's changed in the last 10, 15 years that necessitates putting netting all along the entire field to protect every fan in the stadium. What's changed?
Attorneys.
But there's been attorneys forever too, But that's some
TV
saying,
attorneys.
And I'm not just saying it's all cell phone stuff, but it's an example of what I'm talking about. Whatever the reason, I'm not trying to say that they should take it down, but I'm saying that's another example and another example. We could sit here if we want to spend all show talking about it. That's just, this is it. Like, that's what I'm talking about, though. There's so many different sanitizing elements to the game.
You could, with the nets going up around the sides now, you never imagine people just on the field with a rope saying, don't step across this. It's like, it's such a different world.
Yeah. And I've actually got photos in the second book that shows a policeman on horseback
on the field
with the fans behind him. It's a fantastic photo. He's like, like, all proud, like the guy looks like a total, like a real police, the guy's, looks like a 1930s policeman, man. He's like rugged, and he's on a horseback. The horse is looking tough too.
So yeah, I can imagine that there was a handful of games from when they clinched it to the World Series. I'm sure that was just, those games were all just Tiger mania.
Oh yeah, but
what else was going on there in 34?
So the next sort of component I wanted to talk about was in relations to the fans, is not just like what it was like to be there or whatever, but the impact of this season, like sort of on the fans of Michigan and Detroit.
Okay.
Because the impacts of this season are profound. There are so many different elements that are important. And this is a rare opportunity to talk about something that's like sort of just gets overlooked, and never really discussed, which is this season is what made Michigan a Tiger nation, right? Before 1934, 1935, the Tigers were a Detroit team, right? If the people that went and watched the Tigers were Detroiters. And that's not to say that there wasn't fans from all over this, everyone, coming from other areas of the state to watch the Tigers. I'm sure there were, but to bring the entire state in, to make the entire state basically like a universal Tiger nation, that is what happened. That's why this season was so key. And one of the main triggers of that having happened was WXYZ radio station.
Okay.
So 1934, this is it's the Michigan Radio Network. So 1934, they bring in Harry Heilman. Okay. Harry Heilman's there's two major names like in the world of early Tiger broadcasting. You can't even mention Harry Heilman without beginning sort of the story with Ty Tyson, who was the WWJ radio announcer, basically the local Detroit broadcaster, the announcer. And he'd been with the Tigers and really doing Detroit sports elements since 1923. And so he's like, one of the things that he broadcast the first University of Michigan, U of M football games. Oh. And when he wanted to broadcast one of those U of M games, the U of M coach and Jim, what's his famous guy? I'm probably going to get a comment saying what's his, comment below and say what's the Michigan coach at that moment. Anyways, 1923. So anyways, he wanted to broadcast a University of Michigan game. And then that coach was like, no, because it's going to make people want to buy less tickets to come to the games because they can get it for free over the radio.
What year?
1923.
23,
yes.
okay.
Yeah. So I believe it was 23 when this actually happens. But so anyways, so they still let him do it. They let Ty Tyson broadcast a University of Michigan game. And then like the next week, it was like a sellout crowd. Like I'm not sure what their attendance was, but there was a noticeable major difference when they broadcast the game on the radio. It made people want to come to games. And so that was like, you're talking about the infancy of broadcasting over the airwaves. And so that's why they're like, oh my God, like it actually had the opposite effect. It made more people come to the games.
Fielding
Yost. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
That was his 23rd season.
Yeah. He was a super, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm almost embarrassed for forgetting that name. I mean, oh my God. But this leads this idea that like radio actually has an impact on bringing attendance in this way. And the idea is that what you're doing is you're engaging the fans in the story of your product, right? You're engaging the fans in the story of this team. And so it may, and especially when they're hearing on the radio to like whets their appetite, like, oh man, I can hear the crowd going wild. I wish I could see this in person. It makes them want to come to the game more. And so the similar effect was on Frank Navin for the Tigers when the same guy, Ty Tyson's like talking to him about, let's broadcast the Tiger games too. And Navin, initially they're like, well, you're going to lose money on attendance. And they were saying the same thing. Like, no, it builds a fan base. It really does. And Navin Navin letting him broadcast even in the 30s. People were telling him, hey, Frank, you're going to lose attendance. And he was like, he didn't even really care about the fact that it was going to add attendance. That's not even why he did it. He did it. He let them broadcast because he was like, well, our fans can't afford to come to the games anyways. Like it's better, when they can afford to come and pay money, they will, but we want to keep them engaged with what we're doing. So, Frank kind of knew that already. Frank was a highly intelligent baseball owner. That's what I'm saying. Like, of all the pantheon of legends in Detroit sports history, Frank Navin, it just seems like a lot of times whenever he's mentioned in any book, it's always he was this kind of nerdy, bookish owner who never gave Ty Cobb the amount of money he deserved. Like that. That's always kind of how he's the picture he's painted of him. Right. But he was a highly intelligent owner, one of the most well-respected like owners in the entire game of baseball. He was huge. He built the Tigers.
Yeah. So Vintage Detroit is telling us the jump from 33 to 34. There was like 320,000 attendance around in 33, and then in 34
explodes
about 920,000.
Yeah, and then in 35 is over a million.
Tripled it. And 35 is over a million.
Yeah, it explodes. So anyways, so the radio is, like I say, the two big names. So Ty Tyson was already an established presence in Detroit. He broadcast over WWJ to the city's fans. Mm-hmm. But then but WXYZ comes on the scene, and they set up the Michigan Radio Network, and that and Harry Heilman, who is a Hall of Fame Detroit Tiger outfielder. I think it was 4 batting titles that he won. Just a tremendous hitter. He was already fans already loved him. Harry Heilman becomes the main broadcaster, the main play-by-play man for and really the one-man show for WXYZ. And so that is the voice that the rest of Michigan hears. Okay. So Detroit hears Ty Tyson, and then Harry Heilman is heard across the state beginning in 1934. Okay. And so that's what I'm saying. So so Harry Heilman, and so a generation of Michigan of the Detroit Tiger fans that are from around Michigan. Like Harry Heilman was their guy. He was there till 1950. So, I mean, this is like their guy, and like for me, growing up as a Tiger fan, George Kell was my guy.
Sure. Yeah.
George Kell was the announcer. George Kell was the voice of the Tigers for me. I used to watch it on TV all the time, out in Kalamazoo when I was living in Kalamazoo. So, George Kell was my, a lot of times people say Ernie Harwell. I didn't listen to him as much on the radio. I was always watching on TV. So George Kell was my guy. That was like the voice for me. But for my George Kell, that's what Harry Heilman was to people from 1934 to 1950. And that was so 1934. So take it like this. Is it a coincidence that, as you say, there are 913,000 fans in 34, 35, there's 1 million. If you keep going down the list of attendance for the Tigers from 1935 on, take a look at the attendance from that. It's 1 million fans every single year from that point all the way till now. Yep. It never changed. Like that's what I'm saying. It's like
800,000 and 36, 1 million and 37.
That's what I'm saying. They average 1 million fans every other year after that. Maybe World War II, it dipped a little bit, but they still had good fans in World War II. Yeah. But I'm saying like the rest of time, it was just 1 million, like clockwork. You know what I mean? Is it a coincidence? Is it just the biggest coincidence in the world?
46.
Yeah, that you go from 300,000, like you mentioned, in 33. And then look at the years before that. It was like 300,000, 350.
Almost 200. Yeah. 1,700,000.
Yeah. Every single year after 34 and 35, it's 1 million, clockwork going all the way up to like 3-4 million. That's like 3 million that we get today. That's what I'm saying. It's like clockwork. Is it a coincidence that this season, like imagine you're somebody that lives in, anywhere, Ludington or, Kalamazoo or anything like this. And your first Tiger experience, you're listening, baseball is already the biggest sport, in the country. Yeah. And your first baseball experience listening on the radio is the 1934 and 35 Tiger seasons. How much of a fan would you become?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You're hooked for life. An entire generation of fans grew up. Their very first experience of listening to the Tigers was the 1934 and 35 seasons, the City of Champions season. And it's worth mentioning too, real quick, while we're talking about it, is WWJ in 1934 when the Lions came to town. They connected on a nationwide syndicate radio channel, and they broadcast the first Thanksgiving game against the Chicago Bears. First Thanksgiving in 1934 on this radio network. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So now you're getting connected. All the fans of Michigan are hooking up with the Lions too.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. Like you see, you see this impact. Like the radio was a big deal in 34 and 35. And I say it's not just a coincidence that, 1 year they're like, again, there's like Domino's, 300,000 fans, 400,000 fans, whatever. In 34 and 35, 1 million every single year thereafter. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. So this is the impact that radio had. And this is the fans. It's not just Detroit fans now. It's fans from across Michigan are coming to the Tigers. They're hearing about it on the radio. They're following the story on the radio. And it becomes like the Tigers become like their Mecca, like their thing that, oh my God, I'm going to Detroit for this. So we're going to watch a Tiger game, And that's how I was growing up when I was in Kalamazoo. When there was a Tiger game, going to a Tiger game was a huge deal.
I remember. Yeah.
Yeah. We traveled across the state back then. Like was one of my friends, Kevin Bush says, like the second time I quoted the same quote, like back when the Tigers were terrible, it was easy to find seats. Yeah. And we'd get like a Little Caesars Crazy Bread was like buy one ticket, get one free. And we'd make the trek from Kalamazoo and get, it would be we'd get the tickets were $2 or something for the bleachers.
It was ridiculous. Yeah.
And then we would get buy one get one. So it was like $1 each coming from Kalamazoo to get a Tiger ticket. Yeah. And so but it was fun, like it was great, but it was like our Mecca, like it was that big of a deal. And so that's how it became.
I grew up in the city and I remember, the field trips in grade school, going to a Tiger game, getting on the bus and going down to a Tiger game.
Yeah. You're lucky, man. I would have loved to have some stuff like that. Be able to go be that close. Growing up as a Tiger fan, man. Yeah. Man, it was I used to just watch it on TV every day and collect the baseball cards. And it was like the rare time we'd get out to Detroit to watch a game was huge. It was a big deal. And so I've experienced that side of it from being from Michigan, right. Listening, watching every day, George Kell's voice, that, Travis Fryman, Cecil Fielder, some of these legends that a lot of people don't even remember these days, but
just a perfect storm here in 34, just building.
That's what I mean. This is the first year that everybody's exposed to it. So I do have a quote that I want to read, and it's not from my book. This is actually I'm not the only person that's written about the City of Champions thing. I was the first. These books are the first ones to come out talking about the City of Champions story. That's fact. No other books out there mention City of Champions story or Champions Day, especially.
Yeah.
That discovery is mine. And so, like, seriously, I'm the first one to mention Champions Day, that there was. So let's just make that clear real quick.
Sure.
But there's been others that have written since that I came out. And a good one, there's a book called Detroit the Unconquerable. It's a book done by, there's a Saber with Saber. Saber is a it's well known as like the analytics group.
Okay.
But they do tremendous. I've got my own critiques about the analytics behind it, but their history is generally very well done. And so this particular, there's a book that was like basically like a Saber project called Detroit the Unconquerable, and there's a writer in the book who his name is Matt Bone. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. His last name is spelled Bohn. In the article, it's this online article, and the article is titled "Good Afternoon, Boys and Girls: The 1935 Tigers on the Radio." That's the like my little introduction to the to this article, and so you can find it online. But this is a great little quote that talks about how big. I really think it's like this is not in my books, and I just think that he did a fantastic job of finding a quote from somebody at this moment that shows just how big of a deal the Tigers were and how cool it was. So the quote that he uses comes from a guy from the New London, Connecticut Day named John DeGange, who wrote in September 1934, which is approximately when the quote earlier that I read came out. So it says, so this is the quote. So on a typical day, it was possible to walk the streets of Detroit and never miss a word of the play-by-play emanating from radios in shops and homes. So this is John DeGange. So he's kind of introducing John DeGange of the New London, Connecticut Day, wrote about his experience driving through Detroit in September 1934. So he's just driving through Detroit and he's telling you what it was like. Okay. And he introduced it by saying on a typical day, it was possible to walk through the streets of Detroit and never miss a word of the play-by-play. So that you don't even have to have your radio
streaming out every window.
There's so many radios going on, you can hear it. So this is his actual words. Even before I reached Dearborn, the radio broadcast of pregame activity had begun. From there, at every gas station and wayside shop, a continuous radio broadcast of the game could be heard from an automobile traveling along the road at a normal cruising speed. As soon as the car passed beyond hearing distance of one radio set, another loudspeaker could be heard just ahead. It went that way almost without interruption from Dearborn through Detroit. Even the customs officials at the tunnel, which takes you from Michigan into Canada, had a radio set turned on to the game. The following summer, as the Tigers neared their second straight pennant, the Associated Press reported that throughout Michigan, radios blare out accounts of the game from almost every storefront. Merchandise is only barely visible through shop windows covered by the score by innings. Fans gather at their radio spots every afternoon, whether the Tigers are at home or not. In cities throughout the state, excitement is at fever heat. Accounts of the games are announced through amplifying systems to crowds, which in several cities have reached 3,000. Like you get the picture. Like this is, I mean, you can go anywhere. Yeah. So you can go anywhere, and like the fact that you could walk through a street and hear the game. Yeah. And he says you can continuously hear you're not going to miss a single play in the play-by-play.
They talk about that. For me growing up, it was CKLW, and the Big Eight. Okay. In Detroit, and the Big Eight. What is that? I'm sorry, Jamie. I'm not sure what that is. Like CKLW. I didn't grow up here. It's music. It was a Canadian music station. Right. It was the AM 800 CKLW, and it changed music. It changed everything. And you hear people telling stories of the same thing about you didn't have to have a radio to listen to CKLW really? Okay. Because it would be streaming out of windows. It would be coming out of cars. Just everybody would listen to CKLW. Yeah. I mean, they're responsible for everything, good or bad. I mean, the people that were programming CKLW went on to create MTV. Program the early years of MTV. Oh, all right. And I mean, I can see. They've gone everywhere. The signal was just so massive. And it just bounced everywhere. I mean, it covered the Midwest, entirely and a ton more.
Yeah.
It's just impactful. And so just as you were talking about that, I remember
that article was a good job too, talking about like the different radios where they were set up, like the different broadcasts.
Yeah.
So it's really worth, if you catch the title of the article, it's really, the entire article is really well done.
So the city got really fired up, and people were like, "Hey, we should probably bring another team in here and cash in on this."
There you go, Lions. Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, so this is that just sort of it brings with the city in this crazy excitement, the NFL sees an opportunity. There's this fantastic team in Portsmouth, Ohio. Are we leading up now to the 34 Lions?
I think so. I think we're gonna jump into
but there is another show we can do between, but we can also save that.
All right, we'll get to the Lions. The Lions are coming.
There's just like this, man. It's tough to pick which one we want to do next. Like I mean, we have a list of like 100 episodes at least.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many potential episodes. We just added 2 more potential episodes just the other day. Like,
we'll talk about some, but the Lions are coming. That it was exciting. We will talk about the Lions.
Yeah, but I mean, we can just set it up just in case. I mean, tee it up. I mean, the idea is that this is the environment that we can tee up the movie too. Like, there's a baseball movie that was filmed in this moment.
So
the backdrop.
About that.
Yeah, me too. So
I want to do a screening of that movie.
I would love to.
Once we get rolling here,
it's an amazing
let some
movie.
people know about this.
Yeah,
I want to share that with people.
No, this is just for the viewers that are watching this now or listening to it. This is what's so incredible. We'll tee this one up too. Might as well. I mean, in 1934, MLB, they wanted to do a movie to show what baseball was, so they could broadcast it across the country and spread the concept of baseball to maybe to the corners of the country that hadn't experienced it. And they used Detroit as a backdrop to film the first MLB movie with sound. It's I found it when I was doing all this research. I got the original articles that talk about them making the movie. George Moriarty, one of the total legend, was the guy that directed and filmed it. He was a former player for the Tigers. I mentioned him in the quote we just did now, George Moriarty. It was an umpire in 34 and 35. And so it's just an incredible film. It's one of my favorite baseball movies. I think it's literally, I'm partial to it because it's like I found this movie and I'm trying to talk about it now, but I'm telling you, when we screen this movie, I dare anyone to tell me that that's not one of the best baseball movies they've ever seen.
We'll bring in some players. I'm gonna drag in some players, and we're gonna do
when
this.
We film this, like everybody's like people talk about the best baseball movies, like The Natural and Major League, all this. There's a bunch of good movies out there, whatever. Bad News Bears, of course. But like I say, like the only reason nobody knows about how great this movie is because nobody's ever seen it. It's just almost unknown. And so it was filmed in Detroit. MLB is, it was the Fisher Body Company sponsored the movie. Like when we say movie, this is a 32-minute version of it. There's a longer cut of 50 minutes that I wasn't able to find. I would love to screen this movie. I can't wait to talk about it in more depth. It's a tremendous film. There's things that people could learn today in broadcasting and filming just from watching this movie. It's a tremendous film.
I'm excited. There's so much more to talk about. So
Lions and this and that, we can tee up right. There's so many things.
We'll get to them, man. Detroit City of Champions, the website. And the website?
Detroit City of Champions.com. I thought you were going to fit. All you got to do is add .com.
I know.
I thought you were like, Detroit City of Champions. You kind of left me hanging.
I threw a cog.
.com.
.com, idiot boy.
I teed it up and I whipped on it.
Yeah. So the website, DetroitCityofChampions.com.
Threw that in there real quick.
Charles, I'm having a blast.
Yeah, man. I love this. I look forward to it every week. And there's so many episodes lined up. Like I'm grateful to you and Matt back here.
Oh my God. Yeah. I know we ignore Matthew. Matthew's pushing all our buttons.
Matt's making the magic back there. But he's doing it. So, but it's like I'm just thrilled because I've told this story. I estimate I've told this story, at art shows and in speeches and stuff like this. I've told it at least over 80,000 times. I've done the math, over 80,000.
You'd figure you'd have it right by now.
Well, yeah, you'd think. There's a couple elements I scrub every once in a while. But that you actually brought up a good point, which is that usually when I'm talking about this story, it's an intro. Right. It's a quick intro. It's a 5-minute conversation. It's, quick selling a book, moving on. This is the first time I've really got a chance to explore the different elements of it.
When I say we're diving
I'm really
deep,
excited about it.
And we are diving, but the books go so much deeper still.
Oh,
and we're still just scratching
I'm reading my own
it.
books to put my nose together.
We're still just scratching it. So keep coming back and scratching more stuff with us. I don't know, that was weird, but
we'll get into it.
So subscribe, leave a comment. We appreciate you spending time with us and listening about this story. It's the Detroit City of Champions podcast.